Today I am joined by a special guest on Duologues. His wealth of experience in the automotive industry and belief in the spirit of human resilience have helped him create a niche for himself. He is the first Indian CEO of Mercedes-Benz in India. Please welcome Mr. Santosh Iyer, Managing Director and CEO of Mercedes-Benz India, to this episode of Duologues. Santosh, thank you so much for hosting me at the Mercedes factory in Pune, specifically at the Center of Excellence here where we are having our conversation. It's a pleasure to be here. I am thankful to you for your time, and I'm sure the conversation which we will have will be insightful and inspiring to a lot of people. And to begin with, the name itself, which is synonym to quality, performance, durability. I myself, being a consumer of Mercedes for more than a decade, we'll talk about a lot about the brand, the products, the strategy. We'll understand about you also. To begin with, tell us that is there a story behind the founding of this company more than a century before? How did the brand came into existence?
Well, to start with, Manish, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking your time as well out to come all the way from Delhi to our plant in Pune.
Thank
and
you.
I look forward for this conversation. Coming to your question about the brand, yes, I think Mercedes-Benz has a big history. We started way back by inventing the car. So in 1886, it was Carl Benz who actually put an engine on a small three-wheeler motor carriage. And then he didn't have the courage to take it out. You know, there was a woman behind him, which was his wife, who one fine day said, "Let me take it out on the street. Let's see what happens." And so she is technically the world's first driver. You can say she took this motor wagon out. That's the story of the invention of automotive. But the name Mercedes again has another story, because after this, on the other side in Germany, we had Gottlieb Daimler, again one of our founder. He was also making cars with combustion engines, petrol combustion engines. In 1899, we had a French businessman, Emile Yenelik. He used to work for Daimler. He bought some cars, drove them in Nice. And they asked what should be these cars called, and he said it can be my daughter's name, and his daughter's name was Mercedes.
Okay.
And that's how the brand got its identity. But it took another 20 odd years, because only in 1926, when Carl Benz and Gottlieb Daimler, they came together, they then the first car that they produced with a brand name was Mercedes-Benz. So surely the name has an history, the brand has an history, and I think it's a real reflection of pioneering spirit. If you would have gone and done market research, people would have said faster horse carriages, but it was the spirit, the human spirit of the inventors, and also his wife, Bertha Benz, who really ensured today we have this huge automotive history around us.
Yeah, phenomenal. And the brand has come a long way. And tell us something about brand's presence in the country. You know, while we understand that a lot of people have been using the products for a while, for many decades. Officially, when did it come to India? And how has the story been over those decades since the brand has been operating as a subsidiary in the country?
Yeah, so the initial years, just after independence in 1954, Tata's came up and then they took us trucks. We had these Daimler trucks, Benz trucks, and that came to India. You can still see some of those old trucks running on roads. When it comes to passenger car, it was around 94 when Mercedes-Benz came into a joint venture with Tata's to India. We had a different factory in Pune itself, and we started assembling cars. Till 2008, we had a lot of challenges in the market, and then in 2009 we came to this state-of-the-art facility in Pune, where we are today doing this interview, investing close to 2,700 crores now over a period of 10 years. We have built up this factory. We are now 28 years in India, a long presence. Now we produce 14 cars here, and of course, from a total car park, we have more than 150,000 cars on the Indian roads in it.
Phenomenal. Santosh, last 3 years, a lot has changed, and a lot of people initially were looking at this huge challenge to impact individuals, organizations, communities, and countries at large. But there were many who were looking at this adversity to be considered as an opportunity. And not only these last 3 years, but almost a decade gone by, being a consumer myself, I have seen a phenomenal turnaround of the brand in the country, and in a lot of spaces you are dominating the market. What will you attribute this success which has happened over last decade or so for Mercedes in India? Needless to say, product sits on the top. Apart from that, what would you attribute this success to?
So it's quite interesting. I joined this company in 2009, just when this plant got started, and I have been now 24 years in the automotive industry. I personally saw a lot of opportunity, also love for the three-pointed star. And the biggest reason for the success is, I think, the people here. There is a lot of, including me and my colleagues, we keep saying that we can take a bullet for the star. You know, we are so passionate about the brand. What does an Indian consumer want, and how we can, offer a very suitable product offering. So what we did way back is to start from the product itself. And here, we make big strides. Today, we introduce a long wheelbase E-Class for India.
Right.
There again, we lead by a large margin in that particular segment. Then it came the BS6 transition. So the entire automotive industry said, we cannot meet the 2020 deadlines. Let's postpone the deadline. Whereas in 2018, we launched the first car with the BS6 engine. So we said we should not delay technologies. We should not delay product offerings unique for India. But the other big decision was also strategically in 2012-13, we decided we won't play this entry-level strategy in India, which is the brand has a very huge respect, and therefore, if we launch a car, it will be fully equipped. We won't have these entry-level, base variants trying to play on price. Instead, we said let's focus on the top end. Let's focus on the AMGs. Let's focus on Maybachs. Let's focus even on, for example, a E-Class or a C-Class. We won't come up with base engine, stripped down versions, and that I think we received a lot of flack at that time because our competitors were exactly trying to grow volumes with a different specification. But we felt that if somebody buys a Mercedes-Benz, they should be as happy, as proud to own this car, show to their friends, show to their families. So it has a panoramic sunroof standard. It has certain basic luxury features which are standard in the car. And I think one of the core reason for our success is no compromise products, products specifically tailored for the market, also going ahead beyond regulations. And last not the least, the recent example, if you see, we challenged the retailing model. So the entire auto industry today works on, the OEM builds to a dealer and the dealer sells it to a customer.
Right.
It comes with its own set of challenges because the dealer will always try to sell what he has in stock. We said no, I think if we want to really behave like a luxury brand, we need to be direct to consumer. We need to keep the dealers with us because they are close to customer geographically and physically, but we need to change the business model. And we were the first to do it, and today the results are very clear. I think all the recent consumer surveys, we are clearly ranked as the most loved brand, also because of the transparency and trust. So we have never shied away from taking big risk, but keeping the customer at the center. So that's the recipe for success.
If you look at India in the global perspective, still the penetration rate of automotive in the country is low. And there can be multiple perspectives, say platform itself. I'm not very sure that the ratio of petrol to diesel to EV in our country would be similar to the other countries or the developed markets. So there could be a significant reason for us to believe that the size and scale of the country today may find it difficult to have customization specific to India happening for a global company like yours. So how are you overcoming those challenges, and are there some good examples where India specific customizations would have started to do well in other emerging markets?
See, first of all, when you look at the total automotive industry, this is quite small compared to the 1.3 billion population we have. So, and there it's now growing because of good infrastructure we can see, and that's I think one of the biggest driver for growth. So with better national highways, better roads, we also find people buying more cars. Coming to luxury segment as such, definitely one of the inhibition comes from the cultural aspect of it, because buying luxury goods in India, luxury was treated as an evil, if somebody making money was not considered to be good. But even those values are changing in India. Now people want to reward themselves. So if I'm doing well in corporate life, professional life, I want to reward myself with a good car. So I think that's changing. When it comes to product, as I said, India is the only market to make a right-hand drive long wheelbase E-Class. So we were able to pull that off by convincing our colleagues that many customers drive themselves only on weekends. Monday to Friday, you need a driver. but that's more for convenience. Parking, I keep joking that at 300 euros you can make our car autonomous, because with a driver you can actually, the car comes to you, you can actually go around shopping and no fear of parking, finding the right places. So this is very unique to India, and therefore the long wheelbase E-Class was one such example. The new retailing model is another example where India is one of the first country to start this model. But this year Germany is going live with the new Model D, the retail of the future business model. Australia went live after us. I have many more markets, Malaysia, Thailand, all following the Indian example. UK has gone live 1st of Jan. So I think we are very proud to say that we are the pioneer market in the new business model of way we are selling cars, and the same is being adopted by other parts of the world.
Interesting. So you are creating clear benchmarks. When it comes to our country, clearly it's a huge opportunity for business. And I also understand that not only customizations or setting up benchmarks like these, you are also building capabilities to become integral part of the global capabilities for Mercedes. Tell us something about that as well.
See, we are proud to say that every Mercedes in the world has an India in it, because these cars are made, a lot of technology is being developed out of our sister concern in Bangalore. It's called Mercedes-Benz Research and Development, led by a very able colleague of mine, Manu Saleh. He heads the entire function, and it has more than 6,000 employees there working there, and they are just not doing normal coding stuff. Let me tell you, we have more than 200 patents being coming out of Bangalore, filed by Indians who are filing these patents. In the future, we just announced our new operating system, the MB-OS, which also a large amount of work is happening out of Bangalore. A lot of stuff when it comes to connected cars, also design. There is a lot of work happening out of Bangalore. So this is a team fully dedicated, but they are not only looking at what India needs, but what the world needs. And then these are all technologies and support systems going into the car. A lot of work happening on safety in the cars. They have a dedicated team studying accidents in India. All this data is then fed to make the cars more safer. So just an example of how India is being used for different, not only for collecting the data, road safety data, but also for developing technologies like MB-OS and so on and so forth.
Two follow-up questions on the point which you made, safety and road accidents. The first one is that how are we looking at solving this problem? It requires a lot of social discipline, improvement in the physical infrastructure, and of course vehicles are safe and they will become more safe in the time to come.
Yep.
And there will be intervention of technology also, and maybe ADAS and systems like those in the time to come will be the true solution for such challenges. How are you looking at this particular perspective of making the overall system more safe, not only the vehicle or the roads or the discipline, but how are you looking at this over next few years to change?
See, firstly, there are two aspects to it. One is, as an OEM, what can we do in this market? And second is the societal aspect of it also. And we being in this business of automotive, way back in 2014, we started a road safety initiative called Safe Roads. So, what we did is, a lot of people don't, I would say, undervalue the importance of seat belt. So we had a simple thing called a belt slider, wherein it is like a, I would say, a normal slide that you see in parks. We used to keep somebody on that slider without a belt, and they used to just topple on the sand. And then we used to show them that even at such a low speed of 7 to 8 kilometers per hour, you are not in control, whereas you feel you are in control. So these are certain tools we took across engineering colleges, across educational institutes, corporate parks, and try to educate them. It's also about the awareness level. I think it was too easy to get a driving license in India compared to many other parts of the world. And if we start addressing that problem at the driving license stage, where a person needs to not only understand and also adhere to certain topics, then maybe our roads can become much safer. So it's a matter of time. The third angle is, how do we make our car safer? There, I think we put maximum number of airbags in the car, or we also come up with, as you said, ADAS systems. But here again, when now many of our cars have ADAS, they do those sudden braking, autonomous braking when the car detects an issue. Now we have customers coming us and say, hey, can you permanently disable them? But we say, hey, this is for your safety. But they say, no, wo gaadi, suddenly it breaks and it's better, let it be in my control. So we can educate, we are trying to find a solution even for that. But the thing is, I think the importance to our own lives, we don't give. And only when an incident happens, unfortunately, that's the time when the awareness level increases. Even today, if you just stand across any 5-star hotel and or any place and you observe people wearing rear seat belts, it's very less. And that just shows that people have forgotten actually some after an incident what can go wrong potentially with our own lives.
True. Santosh, this was my second follow-up question, and being an engineer myself, I really wanted to understand, and sometimes unfortunate incidents are such that you get to know about things. I also used to believe that airbags anyway work. I really wanted to understand this mechanism. How does it happen? So, is there a relationship between the seat belt? How does it happen? I mean, what is the mechanism?
I think it's a very good question. Both of them have a role to play. First of all, the role of a seat belt is to keep the occupant where he is supposed to be in case of an accident. So, generally the velocity is so much that the tendency to fly in the car or go out of the car is huge, and that itself may cause injury to not only self but to even co-passengers, and that will also cause distraction to the driver if you are on the behind. So, seat belt is the starting point. Followed now, the airbags are supplementary restraint systems. So, they are supplementary, they are adding on, and they are designed in a way that if a person is wearing a seat belt, then he or she is supposedly assured that they are in that place, and then the airbag is deployed so that you don't crash into the airbag, you don't deflate the airbag. So, they both are always designed together as a pattern and not independent of it. Even if you wear a seat belt and if the car has lesser airbags, still it's better, I would say, than the other way around, where you don't have a seat belt but if the airbags can just get deployed. Because again, cars have multiple sensors, they are programmed. What you don't want is an airbag getting deployed even without an accident happening. That's the worst, because then you actually cause an accident. So, generally airbag deployment is more conservative. A seat belt is permanent always, because that's how it is, and that's the education and the understanding I think we need to promote more. We are doing as much as possible in our road safety, I would say, as I said, safe roads and many initiatives, but glad you brought up this question.
Right. Santosh, how do you see the progression of technology in next 3, 5 and 10 years? One perspective is that adoption of EVs will anyway gain traction. What's happening to engines? I mean, to what extent OEMs will continue to invest large amount of research funds into continuing to develop engines? So, what's happening to technology in next? So, connected anyway is happening, and ADAS will also happen. How do you see adoption of EV in our country in specific? So, what's going to happen in next 3 to 10 years in this industry?
See, firstly, the EV adoption is driven by two things. One is the legislative. So, if you see Europe, after 2035, they don't allow any combustion engine. So, that's clearly a death of combustion engines. 3 days back, there was a discussion about allowing combustion engines with some eco fuels, which are expensive today. Hopefully, technology makes them better, but still it's a very minuscule percentage. Maybe some small OEMs would like to still continue that path. But in general, if you look at developed countries, it's the legislative which is driving it. Then comes manufacturers like us. Who have a huge stake. We are listed in companies, and today for anyone to really command market presence, you need to be sustainable. It is no longer as part of one of the core areas in your management presentation, etc. But I think shareholders clearly ask us that do you have a sustainable strategy? And sustainable strategy doesn't mean just tailpipe emissions. Even those days are gone. That's a given that we have to develop an EV. But is your car 100% recyclable? Can your car, is your entire supply chain fully foolproof? Is it all coming out of sustainable practices, sustainable resources? And this is, I think, the next frontier where Mercedes-Benz has already committed that by 2039 we will be end-to-end sustainable. It's just not the tailpipe. And also we have a clear roadmap, like by 2030, 40% of the car will be produced from recyclable materials. Right now, 85% of the car is recyclable, but we are saying even a new car, 40% of it will be from recyclable material as early as next 6 years. So, I think that there is a lot of investment on technology like green steel, and green lot of things that goes into the car. The EQS has got seats made out of recycled fishing nets, for example. So, there is a lot of work happening on those areas, and that's a given, because we want to be in the frontier of really developing and delivering sustainable mobility in the true sense.
You spoke about sustainability. So, when it comes to products, it's surely understandable that how this progress is happening within your organization. And again, practices which are central to ESG based models are taking center stage, and within sustainability, practices like DEI would also cut across defining an organization and the people who work within the organization. So what it takes to be a professional working with or for Mercedes in India? How do you define a professional, people who are working with Mercedes in India?
I think we are guided by a clear strategic framework to start with, coming from Stuttgart, which is a clear corporate philosophy and a corporate guideline. Having said that, we need to interpret that and make it relevant for the Indian market. So we have a clear house of policies when it comes to MB India. What do we do for the society, our stakeholders in and around us? What do we do for our customers? And of course, what do we do for supplier network and employees as such? So this is something that we have interpreted from the global strategy document. This document is not something just to be put on a frame. We live it. The management team reviews it on a frequent basis. We adapt it because it's a changing environment also around us, and we may need to fine tune and adapt it. And it's a living document, which gets really, I would say, practiced by each and every one of our colleagues. Even when I talk about sustainability initiatives in India, this plant we are in Pune is 100% powered by solar energy, for example. So we have a complete green energy already in 2022, last year, and we completely transformed. So everything here is run by sustainable power. In and around, if you see our societies and communities, we are doing a lot of work in the tribal areas here. This work is not about donation. Our fundamental philosophy is employability. Can we make people employable? Because then their families are fed, and it's not a one-time check that's being given out. So whatever work we do in tribal communities, also in diversity space, today we have a lot of investments wherein we want females to learn new skill set and start contributing to themselves and their families. And this is where the entire, I would say, CSR topics are also aligned as such. So it cuts across spectrum. As I said that I am really proud to lead this team in India. We have a very fantastic workforce. My biggest attrition is not to anybody else in the industry, but my colleagues living to other parts of Mercedes-Benz network, joining Singapore, Germany, or maybe Malaysia and other areas. So I think we take a lot of pride in working for the organization. People have the DNA with them, and that also ensures we are fully aligned to the global goals.
Wonderful. Santosh, we'll move to the second part of our conversation to understand you better, your life, the experiences, where did you grow up, how was the early part life, early part of your life like, and when you were kind of growing up. In my case, there used to be limited career choices, and the most frequently asked question potentially was, you want to become an engineer or a doctor. So what was it like for you, and how did this particular part of profession happen?
My current, I would say, where I am is largely dependent on my early childhood. Because my early childhood, I had parents, and both the parents, once I was born, somehow, they both were diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. So my dad was a multiple sclerosis patient. He had a demyelinating disorder. My mom later on was diagnosed with a lupus syndrome. Both autoimmune, happens one in billions actually. But both husband and wife, without having any hereditary, having at the age of 35, 40. And then they raised us. I have my elder sister to me. We were in school when this happened. It was slowly demyelinating, and then we used to observe them. And my dad, was very courageous at that point of time. He said, fine. He was an engineer by profession. Then he learned homeopathy, thinking that that would have a cure for some of these autoimmune, because allopathy then and even now doesn't have a clear cure. So he started doing research by himself. With his research, he started giving medicines to friends and families. So my house used to be, so during the day, he used to go to, he was heading a large plant, a manufacturing plant. In the evening, it used to be a clinic more for friends and families, and people used to come. He used to, and he used to solve a lot of, and my mom used to be the compounder actually at home. Both me and my sister used to ask, hey, what's this? We are growing up, they are not at 100%. And when we used to walk up to them, they used to say, service to humanity, service to God. So we don't need to bother. I think we take, we love what we are doing. And he never found himself as handicapped. I think that spirit of not giving up, and those things I learned at a very early age. I lost him 25 years back. My mom was with me. I lost her 4 years back. But I think my entire upbringing, actually, with those values, with those, with hard work, how they used to really bring us up without any compromises, I think that really laid for me a very solid foundation. The second influence on my life is my first job. I started, and this again, I still have those classified ads in a Time of India which said walk-in interview for a sales executive in a company called Avery. I'm not sure if you have heard. Weighing machines, yes, it's quite famous. And it was in Bombay, in Ballard Estate. I asked my dad, he said, career is yours. I am an engineer, you want to continue doing it, but you want to do a sales job? I said, I think, let me try. So first interview, I went in, cleared 2 rounds, and I still remember my boss that time, who later on became my boss, saying, there is a final interview, we are a British company, very formal, better wear a tie and come. So I went to Fort, I bought a tie, and we came for the final interview and cleared it. But my entire sales foundation, I could attribute it to this company, Avery, and that's where I think these formative years really shape up career, shape up life in a very different fashion.
Hearing those 2 anecdotes, the question coming to my mind is, what do you feel, life is a matter of choices or chances?
I think it's a combination of both. Life gives you choices, but you have to take the right chances at the right time. So, this is again, if I have to extend this story, I used to work for Avery, my dad suffering from this, and then I lost him in a hospital operation which didn't go well. And that's the time where an entrepreneurship opportunity came up in Nepal. It's a large business group. I knew this founder, second generation businessman, a Marwadi businessman, and he said, Santosh, you want to come to Nepal? And then I thought, Nepal? I am a Mumbaikar, born in Kerala, brought up in Bombay. Then he said, you come for 1 week. If you don't like it, anyway, you continue your job. So I took a leave. I went to Nepal, Kathmandu, and then I saw a lot of entrepreneurship opportunities. And then I said yes. I was 2 years there. I not only I started a new engineering division, which is distributing compressors, weighing machines, lot of stuff. Even today, it's very successful. And then I also had a failure. I then thought, my first tryst with automotive was when I used to be responsible for Yamaha bikes there. They were a large distributor, but also made a new 3-wheeler of my own. So it was a gas-powered 3-wheeler. 2000, Kathmandu is a valley, and they banned 2 strokes, saying non-environment friendly. So that time I thought, why can't we make a public transport 3-wheeler which can run on gas? And then with my limited knowledge, I started getting engines from Japan. I started those kits, Lovato kits, and I started to make a 3-wheeler. Being a sales and marketing guy, we came up with some commercials. The entire stock got sold out. Wonderful. But the challenge was the product quality itself. And I really, when I look back, it was not my cup of tea. It took me 6 months to learn that manufacturing is a different ballgame compared to sales and marketing. But I learned the hard way. And so that's also something that really shaped me up in thinking that sometimes success goes so fast in your head, you are making good money, you are doing so well, and then you think you can do everything. But and then coming back to your question, opportunity and chances. It's a combination of both. The opportunity was there, but I had to take a chance to go out of my comfort zone of Bombay to Kathmandu, do business there, again come back. So I think it's a combination of both always.
And when you came back, you joined Yamaha after that?
Well, when I came back, I didn't have a job in hand. So I told my so-called partner that time in Kathmandu, he said, Santosh, what will you do after you go back? I said, I don't know. I'll go and I will search again. So that spirit took me to Bombay. Then I had to come to Pune for a job interview here in Pune. And so I checked into their hotel and they asked me, can I have your business card? And I didn't have any. I could have given my earlier card, but morally it's not right because I'm no longer in that organization. So then they said, you have to pay advance. And then I hit, oh, I need a job desperately. Else, your identity is from the organization that you work for. And yes, later on, because I was representing Yamaha in Nepal, they knew me and they checked, and then I was more than happy to join sales in the Maharashtra, in the western region. Then I moved to marketing up north. And the rest is history, you can say.
Yeah, so when you keep making the right choices, more and more chances keep opening for you. That is what I understand.
Exactly.
Fantastic. And it can be a demanding job. The chair at which you are sitting can be a reasonable demand to deal with. How do you manage the stress of being there on that seat? It's a big responsibility.
I think I am a guy who starts to trust people because then my job becomes easier.
Right.
And I start from trust. Of course, I have been sometimes not been always lucky to have the reciprocal trust back. But I would say 9 out of 10 times I am right, and and then the team works for you because they are as passionate about your purpose and your goal as what you individually are, and that's something they rally much more around me, and that gives me more space and time to do different things. So and I think what we do is commonsensical.
Right.
It's no rocket science in our day-to-day business. So if you do, and if you are able to motivate your core team, then they take care of it. You get more time to think more strategic topics. Your problems are their problems first actually, so they take ownership, they try to find solutions, and that helps me a lot. So I have a huge safety net of a very good team working with me.
Right. And when you speak about the purpose, we'll come to that little later. But quite often, I'm sure the team which works with you would get inspired looking at you, and vice versa would happen. In your own life, were there incidences or people you got inspiration from? Is there any mentor you look up to?
Yeah, as I said, my first biggest inspiration always remains my dad, because he was really something, not from the values, from the way he approached life, from his entire outlook. And second, of course, is the different bosses I had in my career, right from my first boss, Jitendra Nigam in Avery, to later on when I was in Toyota, when I was in, you can say, Ford. I have worked in different organizations. I am really thankful to the colleagues there. I learned each day. There my aperture of mind was always open to learn those new things, and many of them have played some role in my life and my career in different aspects. So even when this news happened of I getting promoted to the MD and CEO, my first call was to those set of mentors. I called them up and they never expected I calling them up. I'm saying thank you because you have played some role in my life which really led me taking up this position. And I think I've been blessed. Even with Mercedes-Benz, I had 6 CEOs till the time I became a CEO. Ever since I joined, I am still in touch with all of them. They do well in different organizations. Some have retired, some are continuing to be in our organization, and they all have played some role as such. So I think as long as you are open to learn, open to adapt, you can always pick up good things from different people you work with.
Yeah, so it's important to stay relevant, like, open to learn or open to adapt. When you look at the youth of the country, there is so much of promise with them, capabilities, the character itself. It's sometimes challenging to stay relevant with the kind of change which is happening and the kind of promise which today's youth reflects. It's a huge opportunity for leaders to, in some sense, capitalize on or utilize or leverage. So one, how do you look at complementing with the thought process, because significant number of potential generation changes would have happened between us and them. So one is that how do you ensure that you keep up pace with that kind of a change which has happened? And second is there anything specific which you feel needs to be created, say the culture within the organization, the processes which run the organization, to be able to explore the true potential of the youth?
Well, before I answer the two questions, when you say the youth has potential, for me, I look at youth also in two types. There is a set of young population which actually are living off their parents' money. These are a set of guys who may not work so hard. They wait for the right opportunities because there is a big social net below them. The cushion is there of their parents' money, house, shelter, all the basic needs.
Security,
until security is there. So if they don't get a job, they will say, let me study more. And they go abroad, they study, they try to find that rosy job and the best job. So that's one set which is not as inspirational. Then there is a second set, and I now see many of them coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities. These guys have, when you do an interview, they have that passion. They are ready to spend that long time to understand, learn. They are ready to take the risk. For them, job content is more important than designation. When I join a company or when I join what is being offered. And this is the set of youth which I feel will propel India to a different stature, because they have, they want to grow themselves. And if such a big population grows themselves, the country is bound to grow. So I think that's the potential which I see. Now, when I look at these set of youth, what what can we do to first be relevant. And I think there it's our responsibility not only for them but to be relevant with time. So you have to continuously learn. Today, I lost the touch of reading, but thanks to social media, thanks to so much of information available, if you are able to dedicate that time, you will be able to upskill and know what's happening around you. The collateral damage is your family sometimes, because even at home you are fiddling with your mobile phone, you are wanting to check on content, news and some updates. But still, I think it's an investment you have to do to continuously be abreast with it. At an organizational level, here I think it's about culture. It's a culture where reverse mentoring is appreciated, because we are a company which is 28 years old in India or 28 years young in India. Our average workforce is still 39 years old, which means we have very senior guys who have been with this company for 28 years. They are leaders, and then we have a young talent pool also which have joined. And here I think the reverse mentoring is important, the culture to be open to some of these new thoughts, new ideas. When we started the hybrid work mode, I think taught us how to work hybrid or how to work remotely. Till that time, it was impossible for us or even me to think we can work from home. But I think when we had this taste of, we said, should we now go back to old pattern of 6 days, 5 days working from office, or should we retain the pattern of entirely working from home? But then we were all convinced that the hybrid is a much better solution. You get good work-life balance, you are able to manage both, and it again starts from trust. There is no attendance in our office. Leaves have to be applied, nobody has to approve. So we have a very different culture here. And if you empower and trust based on the job, you are able to get things done. And this is what I think this youth looks up to, that you trust us, and give us our KPIs, we will deliver or even over-deliver to that.
True. You spoke about the purpose of existence for individuals. This potentially would be my last question to you. What is that very higher purpose which wakes you up every morning to do what you do? Is there a central purpose to your life?
See, to be very frank, I have a larger purpose, which is I always have a strong urge to give back to the society. I think as a country, I studied in a convent school where my school fees were like $10 for a 10th standard and a $5 for a 5th standard student. That was in Bombay there. So I feel the society somewhere funded my education. Somebody did it, and if I don't now give it back at some point of time when I'm able to do it, and not by money, I think that's something very easy for many people to do it. But what is that core value I can add? How can I make more people employable? How can I do that? So that's something there. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm still in my career, I'm still in that age, and here I only feel I should open doors for as many people as possible to do better in their life. It can be either directly via the brand or via what I do, or even indirectly with the amount of people I know in the industry, with the amount of knowledge I have gained. So if anybody, I can help them in their life to make their lives better, I always feel happy and nice at a larger level. But at some point, I would exit and I would like to proactively contribute to ensuring there is something, a larger good I can do to certain sections of society.
More power to you, Santosh. The conversation was enriching for me. I am very confident that this would be very insightful and inspirational to a lot of people. I wish you all the best in whatever you are doing, and a lovely life ahead. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thanks a lot, Manish. Thanks for your time. Really happy to have this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.